And so she's going to read from a piece, actually an Austin gentleman, but he couldn't be here tonight, but it's probably one of the fiction pieces that jumped out first time I read it. I didn't intend to be the fiction editor. We just didn't have one, so we're taking applications.
A Matter of National Security by Michael Nachbar. Randall ate a soggy egg sandwich in the front of his parked Honda. This was his first time trying Subway's breakfast, and it underwhelmed him. He used his free hand to turn the volume up on the AC/DC album playing. There was no need to worry. This was his second interview with Covariance, and he was pretty sure he'd done well in the first. It was 7:07, and he didn't want to be too early for a 7:30 a.m. interview. So he would wait a couple of minutes. Smile, he told himself. 10 years ago, he had worried that taking night school IT courses was a waste of time and money. Now he was interviewing for his dream job. A security guard in the building lobby made a phone call, and a minute later, the perky blonde office assistant, who Randall recognized from his last visit, greeted him. They took an elevator to the basement where the Covariance engineers worked, and she led Randall to a conference room. No one was in the office at 7:30, leaving Randall free to ogle the spacious cubicles, big enough to fit 3 desks, 4 monitors, and a rainbowed assortment of stress balls and foam footballs plastered with the logos of software vendors. Randall entered the conference room through a sliding glass door and sat facing the door in a modern chair made from a single piece of fluorescent orange plastic. To his right was a whiteboard covered with partially erased fragments of code and a cartoon chicken drawn holding a martini glass, captioned "Party Foul." "Confidence," Randall coached himself, taking deep breaths. "You deserve 4 monitors." 10 minutes later, a rough voice echoed through the basement. Randall could tell by the difference in the office assistant's voice that someone important had arrived. A dump truck of a man in a blue button-down shirt that looked ridiculous fitting his wide neck and shoulders approached the conference room. He carried a black leather briefcase in his right hand. The door opened and Randall tightened the muscles in his wrist as he extended his hand, but it was no match for the bone-crushing grip that greeted him. The man introduced himself simply as Sanders. He was pale and balding with thick bags under his eyes. They sat and Randall remarked, "This is a nice office. I don't work here." Randall chewed his tongue, waiting for Sanders to elaborate. Instead, Sanders opened his briefcase and removed a comically large stack of papers. He began to skim the pages, penning occasional notes. "Let me assure you," Sanders began abruptly, "I'm not one of these computer guys." He did not sound disdainful, but merely apathetic. "The Covariance people didn't tell me anything about you, but they only have me meet the guys they like, so congratulations." "Thank you," Randall said, quickly suppressing his smile when Sanders didn't reciprocate. "As I'm sure you know, Covariance is a government contractor. You'll get the standard background check, but I'm here to ask some additional questions. Are you ready to begin?" Randall nodded. "Mr. McDaniel, have you ever been convicted of a felony?" "No, sir." Randall grew up in Maine and had never called an adult sir, but his intuition told him Sanders would expect it. "Have you traveled outside of the United States in the past 5 years?" "Yes, sir, to Canada and Mexico." "Have you ever disagreed with the actions of the U.S. military?" Randall swallowed. He'd not prepared for such a subjective and loaded question. He looked to Sanders for guidance, but Sanders' face betrayed nothing. Remain calm, Randall told himself. Nervous is worse than a bad answer. "Yes, sir." Sanders did not react. "I've obtained records from Wedge Corp, your current employer. These questions will concern those records." He lowered his head to read from the top paper on the stack. "On December 10th, did you use company internet to access an article titled, 'Government for Sale, Corrupt Defense Contractors'?" Randall squeezed the edge of the table in front of him. He recognized that Sanders obviously knew the answer and wanted to see how he reacted. Yes, sir, Randall answered, straightening his posture. And at 11:39 a.m. that day, did you post a comment on that article that read, and I quote, "Those pretzels are making me thirsty"? Randall spit laughter before he could cover his mouth. Can you explain this comment to me? Sanders must have recognized the joke, but if he did, it didn't show. The silence thickened as Randall waited. He guessed he was going to do this. Well, sir, it is. I guess you would call it a custom on the internet to make the first comment on an article a play on the word first. And sir, are you familiar with the TV show Seinfeld? Sanders scowled. Do you believe, Mr. McDaniel, that this is an appropriate use of taxpayer-funded resources? Randall exhaled. He was in a good place if all they had on him was that he sometimes slacked off at work, as literally every office worker did from time to time. Well, sir, staring at my databases can be tiring. Sometimes I find it helpful to clear my head. Our data indicates, Sanders said, ignoring Randall's explanation, that you often play fantasy football during work hours. Again, Randall and everyone else. Yes, sir. Did you in the fall of 2002 manage a team that you named, and I quote, "Romeo is a homo"? Randall leaned back in his chair and a thick bead of sweat dropped from his forehead onto his shirt collar. Yes, sir, he answered quietly. Mr. McDaniel, are you a homophobic person? No, sir. A lump grew in the back of Randall's throat as he took stock of the post on his league's message board and how much worse they would sound read aloud without context. I used that name more for the rhyme than to disparage any group of people. Sanders flipped rapidly through a stack of papers before stopping at a page in the middle. And did you, on January 15th, 2003 at 1:56 a.m., search on Google for the phrase, Josh Hartnett shirtless? Excuse me, Randall spouted. Did you on January, no sir, I heard the question, but that date is over 10 years old, and I did not work at Wedge Corp back then. Sanders narrowed his eyes. Mr. McDaniel, we have a variety of internet data. You may not remember the exact date and time, but does that sound like a search you made during that time period?
Yeah, you gotta buy the journal. I mean, there's no way around that. Next up, we're going to hear some poetry from Zoe Faye Stent. I've just met her, and she seems like a fascinating person, so let's see.
What a great and mysterious introduction. Thank you. I don't think I'm that mysterious of a person. I'm rather an open book, but and my poetry usually follows suit. So I will read some of it for you. This first piece is called Kamikaze Discovered in Montpellier. Can you hear me okay?
A little louder.
No? Louder? Is this good?
Fine.
Okay. The fake pregnant belly gave her away, but by then they were already tracking her. The funds she was funneling, her husband and kids too. From age 4 to 11, we shared a classroom, shared birthday parties and walks home from kindergarten, 15 years before she would be recruited, radicalized, siphoning the money from her massive heritage to the cause, hundreds of thousands of euros already wired before the police caught on, the belly waiting to be filled with a collection of explosives. At 8, she finger painted her name on my bathroom wall with tiny white fingers, wrote herself into the narrative next to a fat rising sun, some futuristic moose, a red snake morphed into a rose. The tiny toilet room dyed technicolor by the hands of our village kids. Her thick letters loop over the toilet paper holder, their yellow outlined by a blue-black darkness itching to bubble up. the first of 3 pretty dark poems, so I hope you're ready for a little darkness. There was a lot of humor tonight, so I'm really grateful for that. This next one is called Responsibility. In May, I dodged small bodies of unfeathered birds that didn't make it, their mothers swooping over as I run past, trying not to get gut or tiny bones stuck in the entrails of my sneaker soles. We live like this, avoiding the blood of others. I dream of cardboard towers filled with refugees opening as I walk past, the cop car flashing its noise already. In the dream, I worry most about my car wrongly parked. I dream an animal I want to love breaks my skin with its teeth. I dream of the falling birds splattering as I watch without catching my empty hands. And then this next piece, I'm blessed to have a mom who is also a poet and also my personal editor. And she read this next piece to be about one of my best friends and roommate who's back there, because I based it off of an image of when my friend shaved her head off, which was a really great image that I used. But the poem itself is definitely not reflective of my roommate, and you might see why. It has to do with pregnancy, and she's definitely not pregnant. So take it as you will. It's called Ritual. She shaves her head to hang the locks like a totem, like a string of garlic above our front door. Tells me they'll smell it, they'll stay away. We wait for weeks, hoping to deter the batons of the body police. And I watch as she lifts her face to the grayed sky, fat with trapped rain, holding her palms out flat. Don't ask me about the science behind the hair. Maybe it's something in the shedding, easier to swallow than any other kind we do. Something in the act of slicing, so the world knows of her penance already. I dream her stomach full of worms. I dream them echoing, humming against the tightness of her skin as she looks to the hung hair for answers. She tells me she dreams of dropping an egg over and over, the unborn splattering on her toes. In this world, we are criminal for putting self over womb. In this world, we wait. Dream again a stomach full of sun, like gold too heavy to carry, melting and dripping out of us, staining our feet.
It's my understanding that she runs an online poetry magazine, is that right? So look her up on the internet, make her friends.